My mother taught me to read music when I was 4, so she gave me a little book and I wrote in it, and as soon as I started doing that I was wanting to do my own music, and so I just always knew that was what I wanted to do, was to put notes onto staves.
There is plenty reason why Sally Beamish is one of the UK's busiest composers. Her music finds a really original place between softness and steel. She blends a folk lyricism with an emotional candour, propulsive rhythms and a real economy of means. She's a kind of composer who knows exactly what she wants to say and will always find the most compassionate and the least fussy way of saying it.
Looking back, I think it was there in every area of my life that I always wanted to make things myself, whether it was cakes or clothes or music. Because a composer in my head was male, it was no surprise to me that I wasn't playing music by women. I remember discovering about Clara Schumann and that she wrote music, and I decided she was going to be my role model, but without knowing anything about her really. But I think she was the only woman composer I'd ever heard of when I was 8 or 9. I remember writing a piece for a beloved teacher at primary school called Miss Wilton, and it was called Wilton's Waltz. And I was so proud of it, and the lovely thing was that everyone in the class kept wanting to hear it again, and that was very special as well. That meant a lot to me, that everyone liked it and wanted to hear it, and she was so thrilled. And yes, I think that was my first experience really of getting feedback about a piece of music. And it was also the first piece that I ever had photocopied, because my father took it to work and came back with 10 photocopies of Wilton's Waltz, and that was so exciting. That was my first publishing experience. And I always knew I was a composer, but the idea of studying the viola was so that I could support that and I could write music. I never thought I would get paid to write music, but I knew I had to do it, so I needed to earn a living. But what happened was that the viola totally took over. I was playing lots of contemporary music and working with amazing people like Oliver Nusson and Luciano Berio and Maxwell Davis, and learning a huge amount, but I thought I didn't have time to write music. And the decision to leave the viola playing behind and to move to Scotland came at the same time as my first professional commission, a couple more groups who'd shown an interest, so I had to get on with it. I also applied for an Arts Council grant, Composers Bursary, and getting that was so important because it made me think, oh, I'm a composer then. I really am a composer. I got a bursary. But what I used it for was childcare, and in those days you wouldn't have dared say that that's what you were going to use your bursary for. But it meant that I could pay for 4 hours a day of childcare. I had 2 babies, and it was a wonderful discipline because I knew if I didn't write anything in that time, then my childcare money was wasted. So I had to get on with it. I became far more productive after I had children than I was before. And it always slightly annoys me when people talk about, oh, Clara Schumann couldn't compose because she had 8 children. Clara Schumann couldn't compose because she was trying to earn a living playing the piano and support her family. When I moved to Scotland, it was the first time that I'd really been aware of a sort of cultural tradition that was part of daily life for everybody, not just for specialists. And you couldn't get away from Scottish music. It was there absolutely all the time because the people are so proud of their culture. And you get the ceilidh in the village hall, which everybody goes to, not just a certain middle-aged section of the community, but the whole of the extended family. So, you know, you get the babies and the grandparents and the teenagers. thinking it's completely cool to go to a ceilidh. I think also it's very tied in with the landscape, and for instance, bird song appears in pibroch music, in classical bagpipe music. There are a lot of references to bird song. And you hear, because bagpipe music is outdoor music, you kind of hear the landscape in it as well. And it just came into it. It was just the right moment. I was just setting out as a professional composer, just getting my first few commissions. I'd left the viola behind in London, quite literally, and these influences started to come in, and it was exactly what I needed. I think the important thing that every composer needs is that feeling of communicating, that you feel you're actually putting something out there which is being received, and that there's a reason to do it, and that you have the confidence to know that you should be doing it, and you don't constantly have this voice in your head saying, is this okay, and does anyone want to hear it anyway? You need to get rid of those thoughts. When I left music college, having studied viola, I did apply to do postgraduate courses in composition at several places, and I got turned down by all of them. And that was really hard. It was mentioned at one point that they wouldn't take a composer who finished a piece in A minor. So I was very tonal at that point, and I still am. I just had to wait until that was okay. It wasn't okay then, in the 70s. And that was very difficult to carry on believing that composing was me and what I needed to be doing. I think the important thing for me all along has been my relationship with players, and of course that's something that I established at music college. And I'm still working with the players that I met at college, and before that in the National Youth Orchestra. Some of the players that I met at college have gone on to become chamber players and commission pieces, then soloists and commissioned concertos, and then conductors and commissioned orchestral works. So I think those relationships are very important, and if people are asking you to write things, then you believe in yourself, I suppose. When you're a composer, it can be very lonely, and you're sort of standing at the bar in the interval, and nobody speaks to you, and you just want the ground to swallow you up. Well, what's fantastic is even if just one person comes up and says that the music moved them in some way, or it changed them, and that it made them think differently, and then you really feel it's all worthwhile because you've communicated something.